to the centre of the international stage. He had the brilliant idea in 1906, when his book Red Rubber was published, of putting on the front of it a picture drawn from the Egyptian Book of the God of souls being weighed in the scales. And in one pan of the scales, they had a picture of Leopold in all of his regal regalia. And on the other side, they had a simple black hand, a severed hand. And that's an extraordinary symbol, really, of a movement. That is really how to imprint something on people's understanding, to sum it all up in a single image. And so I think that, he really is one of the fathers of investigative journalism and of pressure group politics and of 20th century humanitarianism.
Morel was waiting for the publication of Casement's report. When it came, he was not disappointed. The report ran for over 50 pages. The British Foreign Secretary called it proof of the most painful kind. For Leopold, the report was a fatal blow.
Ce haut fonctionnaire britannique ne se contente pas d'établir la preuve des atrocités. Il montre que ces atrocités font partie d'un système qui, par sa durée dans le temps, son étendue dans l'espace et sa répétition, est très certainement le pire des systèmes coloniaux que l'Afrique ait connu.
The Casement report so unnerved the king that he made a serious mistake. In 1904, he sent his own international commission to the Congo to investigate. He thought he could control what they said. He was wrong. He hadn't counted on the determination of one man, John Harris, a missionary at Baringa. Harris and his wife had set up a mission right in the heart of a concession area. Every day they saw the crimes that were being committed against the Congolese. As a result, Harris was waging his own war against the state.
To His Excellency the Vice-Governor General, I have just returned from a journey inland to the village of Nsongo Umboyo. The abject misery and utter abandon is positively undescribable. A few months ago, Monsieur Pilet took his sentries there. A young woman, Imanega, was tied to a forked tree and chopped in half with a machete, beginning at her left shoulder, chopping through the chest and abdomen and out to the side. It was in this way the sentries punished the woman's husband. Another woman, Bolumba, wishing to remain faithful to her husband, had a pointed stake forced into her womb, and as this did not kill her, she was shot. I found that, as in other towns, enforced public incest formed amusement for the sentries. I was so moved, Your Excellency, by these people's stories that I took the liberty of promising them in the name of the Congo Free State that in future you will only kill them for crimes.
Baringa, then and now, was at the end of the earth. The Harrises set up a hospital that still struggles on. Then, like now, the missionaries dealt with the impact of war, terror, and deprivation. Then, like now, they faced the scourge of sleeping sickness. In Harris's day, the Congo was torn apart for its rubber. Now, it's ravaged for diamonds, gold, and other minerals. The result for the Congolese is the same: generations of pain, a whole archaeology of oppression. A 100 years ago, 2 steamers came to Baringa. On board were judges, secretaries, state officials, and soldiers. Leopold's International Commission had arrived. The commission judges had been carefully chosen by the king to ensure that the outcome would be in his favor. But John Harris had gathered a host of Congolese witnesses to testify. As the judges listened to their evidence, Leopold's plans were coming unstuck. The villagers were confirming the truth of Casement and Morel's accusations. And worse still for the king, Harris had made arrangements for the evidence to be published by Morel.
Tango tokomaki na mboka Bolima, nkumu ise kifaso. Azalaki na kati ya ndako na ye. Babomaki ye na kapita ise kitoki. Esika moko babomaki pe basi mibale ya ise kifaso, na mwana moko ya moke. Bakataki ye na eteni mibale. Bafungoli pe libumu ya mwasi moko. Totiti mabumu ya mwana oyo tobomaki likolo ya bandako. Totie pe likolo ya banzete ya mike mabumu ya mwana wana. Tango tozongi na baringa, mundele apengoli basinzili nyonso. Atoni bango po anini babomi bato mosusu te, pe po anini bakangi ata moto te.
For 3 months, Leopold's commission collected the evidence for their report. One incident stands out. Lontulu, a chief from a village near Baringa, arrived unannounced. He brought with him 110 twigs. Each twig represented one of his villagers killed by the state. As he laid the twigs in front of the judges, he named each twig.
Watu Chef Yembe Kumu Yangi Kumu Mai Kumu Binzo Mwana Kwang.
The state never forgave Lontulu, and some weeks later he was tortured to death. But when the commission finally left the Congo, the Governor General committed suicide. He slit his throat with a razor. When John Harris came back to England, the journalist W.T. Stead asked him if Leopold should be hanged at the new International Court of Justice at The Hague. Harris replied,
I think any international tribunal which had powers of a criminal court would, upon the evidence of the Commission alone, send those responsible to the gallows.
Well, the idea of one of the great perpetrators of European colonialism and one of the perpetrators of European colonialism at its most callous and unpleasant being brought before an international court is, I have to admit, not an unattractive one. And I suppose what we're seeing at this time, and of course it's part and parcel of this new imperialism, this crude, heavy-handed, aggressive, violent imperialism, is criticism in the West. One is seeing the development of an international radical movement. And people like Stead and people like Morel are the beginnings of a movement which eventually will produce the League of Nations and the UN. And it would be attractive to think that Leopold could have been an early victim, but unthinkable, I think, at the time.
The Commission's report had vindicated Casement and Morel, and when it was published, it even had an effect in Belgium. Leopold had tried to make it as anodyne as possible, but he had failed. For the first time, Belgian intellectuals and religious leaders came out openly against the king. There was a real chance of annexation, that Belgium would take over control of the Congo. Morel watched eagerly as step by step the king's reign in the Congo was drawing to its end. Red Rubber was published in 1906. Morel knew the king was isolated. Belgian annexation of the Congo was inevitable, but Morel was still pushing. He wanted the change to happen now.
We demand that this shall stop. Not 15 years or 5 years or 1 year hence, but now.
Almost as an admission of guilt, Leopold ordered the burning of all incriminating Congo state records.
C'est tout de même bizarre, cet homme qui, dit-il, n'a rien à cacher et qui détruit toutes les traces de son action. Est-ce qu'il n'y avait pas des choses qu'il voulait absolument arracher et à tout jamais à des regards indiscrets? Une chose est sûre, pour les historiens, c'est une catastrophe. Mais pour ses défenseurs, c'est du pain béni que cette destruction volontaire. Ils auront toujours beau jeu, et ils ont beau jeu de répondre aux critiques de Léopold II, apporter les preuves de ce que vous dites, les preuves que Léopold II a détruites.
Right to the end, the king insisted that the Congo was his and his alone, but no one was listening anymore. In 1908, the Congo became a Belgian colony. Belgium gave the king 50 million francs as a mark of gratitude. Leopold died the following year. He had asked for a private funeral, but he lost that request too. At the funeral, his cortege was booed as it passed. Leopold, by the end of his reign, had become the most hated man in Europe. It seemed that justice had been done. Leopold's statues are in reality monuments to a nation's denial. Despite being put in place after the king had died in disgrace, he is unashamedly represented as the civilizer and benefactor.
C'est remarquable qu'après sa mort, une nouvelle image de Léopold II émerge et avec elle, une histoire entièrement remodelée. Dans cette nouvelle histoire, qui est patriotique, se trouvent mélangées trois choses. Le roi Léopold II, devenu l'objet d'un véritable culte national. La Belgique en tant que nation, soudée derrière son roi. Et le Congo, devenu enfin une colonie de la Belgique.
Almost as soon as the Congo became Belgian, the new owners began preaching their colonial gospel. The litany of how Belgium was bringing civilization, turning a wilderness into paradise, was repeated over and over to willing listeners.
Kunnen wij in België gaan nu op een eerlijke manier profiteren op iets wat oneerlijk is tot stand gekomen? Dat kon ook niet. Dus, daarom moesten wij met een mooie kolonie op een gezonde morele basis kunnen vertrekken.
And the new Belgian Congo made financial sense. There were diamonds, gold, and a whole host of minerals that Belgium could exploit. Leopold, before giving up the Congo to Belgium, had set up a giant mineral exploitation industry. Why shouldn't Belgium take advantage of that and enjoy the profits without any of the guilt? Belgians could feel comfortable knowing their investments in the Congo were for a good cause and enjoying the returns without shame. Africans were being civilized and Belgium was getting richer. Leopold had been right all along.
Le Congo colonial, économiquement prospère, avec ses Noirs heureux et reconnaissants envers la Belgique, c'est une légende inventée de toutes pièces. Car on a mis au point une stratégie consistant à rendre propre l'argent du Congo, à assimiler les intérêts de la Belgique et ceux du Congo, et surtout à nier le passé, à l'occulter et à le faire oublier. C'était exactement ce que Léopold II avait voulu. Cette stratégie a réussi, a très bien réussi, pendant la colonisation et même après la colonisation. Car il a fallu quelques 100 ans pour que, enfin, remontent à la surface tous les secrets peu reluisants sur la colonisation au Congo.
In the years since the Congo Reform Association, Casement and Morel have also sunk into the Congo amnesia. Casement became an Irish nationalist and was executed by the British for plotting with the Germans in the First World War. Morel's pacifist views made him deeply unpopular, and he too was accused of pro-German sympathies.
Morel and Casement did both become, in the course of the First World War, associated with Germany. They were seen as tainted figures. And I think that's one reason that actually the quite heroic achievements of the Congo Reform Association have been forgotten. I think the other reason it's been forgotten is that the Congolese themselves have not had the power or the leverage on the international stage in the way that Jews have, in the way that Black Americans have, to push the Congo as one of the world's great holocausts.
The bloody history of the Congo has continued. Since 1998, perhaps as many as 4 million people have died there during a civil war. Before that, a cruel dictatorship imposed by the West. Before that, colonization. The UN regularly issues reports on how the country is still being exploited. Yet another homage paid to Leopold in Brussels, this one put up just a few years ago. Leopold will be proud. As far as we know, nowhere in the surviving records of his reign or of his Congo Free State is there ever an admission of guilt or a scintilla of remorse. But who will ever know what was going on in his mind in 1909 as he lay dying?
I saw on that ivory face the expression of somber pride, of ruthless power, of craven terror, of an intense and hopeless despair. Did he live his life again in every detail of desire, temptation, and surrender during that supreme moment of complete knowledge? He cried in a whisper at some image, at some vision. He cried out twice, a cry that was no more than a breath. The horror. The horror.